everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I thought I would do another disability related video because you guys love them. You seem to just love them. So I thought I would do another one for you just to please you, just because I am that nice. So this is going to be the Disability Misconceptions tag. Now this was a tag created by someone called Nicola Golding. Nicola is here on YouTube and she's also got a blog as well, and she talks about an array of disability related topics. She talks about her condition, which is cerebral palsy, and living with a disability, and she makes some really interesting videos. And she created this tag and she tagged me to do it, and I have been meaning to film this for ages now and I kept forgetting to film it, and I had it on my list of videos to film, and today I was sat down looking through my list of videos and I remembered that this was one that I had said that I was going to do. So today I am going to be chatting about disability misconceptions, because anything that talks about disability and misconceptions I am totally in. I've spoken a lot about disability misconceptions in the past, so some of this might be covering old ground because I made two videos, the top 10 misconceptions of visual impairment, part 1, and then a part 2. Hopefully this is like going back to my roots, and I am quite excited to be doing this tag finally. Okay, let's do this.
What is your disability and how does it impact on you?
So my disability is a condition called Septo Optic Dysplasia. Now this condition affects both my endocrine system as well as my eyesight, and I have optic nerve hyperplasia as a result of my septo optic dysplasia, and I also have congenital nystagmus, which is an end result also of my septo optic dysplasia. So it's all linked, it's all interlinked, and with my condition it also affects the way that I produce certain hormones. It affects the way that my blood sugar regulates itself, it affects the way that I produce cortisol and various other things like that. So it's quite a complex condition, and it's something that is both invisible in terms of my health and also visible because of my visual impairment and the fact that I work with a guide dog. My actual illness is more challenging, and yet it's the part that people don't always know about me. In all honesty, I think I face more misconceptions due to my visual impairment in terms of the way that people treat me and the way that people perceive me, whereas with my illness, because it goes unnoticed, I don't really come across that many misconceptions. Of course there are some. For example, sometimes people say that I don't look like I have a disability, which I've spoken about before, and sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge, especially when it surrounds things like using a disabled toilet or using a disabled parking space or various other things where people might look at me and presume that I don't have a disability based on the way that I look.
2. What is the most common misconception that you come up against with your disability?
I think the most common misconception that I come across because of my disability, in particular because of my visual impairment, is people always assume that I am totally blind, which is actually not the case. I do still have some remaining eyesight, which I've spoken about many times before. I've spoken about what the depth of my eyesight is and what I can and can't see. But I think for a lot of people who might not have had any experience of dealing with people with visual impairments, or they might never have met anyone with a visual impairment and had a chance to talk to people about the sheer breadth of sight loss, it's simply a case of either you have sight or you don't have it, or you must be lying. And I think that's how it is with a lot of people, because I know a lot of people who have guide dogs, long canes, or they have a visual impairment, and they tell people that they've got a visual impairment and people automatically assume that that means that you're blind, but actually that's very far from reality. There are many different types of eye conditions and varying degrees of sight loss, and each person sees the world differently. People look at me and they see me walking along with my guide dog and they presume that I'm totally blind, and then I've gone up to a tube map and started trying to find the station, or maybe I've got my phone out, or maybe I've been looking through my monocular for the train time or something like that, and they're like, what? They're completely thrown by it because they think that I'm totally blind. And when I do something that is sighted, they're really miffed by it because they think that I'm lying. And I think this misconception also encompasses lots of other misconceptions. So when people see me and the way I look and they presume that I'm totally blind, they get an idea in their head of what I can and can't do and how much I can see and what my capabilities are. And when I explain to them my sight loss and how it affects me, it also leads into other misconceptions. People ask me, how can you have a guide dog if you're not fully blind? They presume that guide dog owners have to be fully blind, which is not true, and lots of other things like that. That's the main one, people presuming that I am totally blind, and that leads into lots of other misconceptions as a result of that misconception. So all the misconceptions, they're all linked.
3. Which misconception annoys you the most?
I mean, I think you guys know what I'm going to say. If you've been a follower of my channel and my blog for a while, you know which one annoys me the most. You don't look blind. Whenever people say that to me in a really incredulous tone and they're like, oh, you don't look blind, it's like, oh, please don't do this to me. Why? We were having such a nice conversation and then you have to go and ruin it. What also annoys me, and I've spoken about this so many times before, is that people say that it's a compliment. So when I get affronted by it, or when I look at them in a weird way, like, what did you say? They're like, oh, just take it as a compliment. I meant it in a nice way. And I get people don't mean to be offensive, and I do understand that and I respect that, but what I always say is that it's not a compliment, because you're saying I don't look blind, but then you're saying that people who are visually impaired or who are blind look a certain way. So for it to be a compliment for me, it has to be a negative thing for other people. So it's othering to the other people who live with visual impairments to say that I don't look a certain way, but they do. So it's quite a sweeping statement. My idea of what you don't look blind has changed somewhat from when I made my video about you don't look blind. Of course, I still think it's about presentation. I still think it's about the way that you look. So I think that lots of people who like makeup or like to dress a certain way or like to take care of their appearance in general in whatever way that they like to do that come across this too. So I think it's a massive thing. People assume that when you're visually impaired you don't want to take care of your appearance just because you can't see, which is actually not true. But also I think it comes down to lots of other things. So it's the way that you conduct yourself, it's the way that you walk, it's the way that you carry yourself, it's the way that you act, it's the way that you socialise with people. So I think it actually encompasses lots of things. People assume that when you're blind you're going to look a certain way, and I think a lot of the time it's very negative with connotations, that you will be quite clumsy, that you won't be able to look nice, that you won't have a conception of how to navigate around your setting that you're in, and lots of things like that. So actually I think when they see someone who is visually impaired, who's confident, who's doing their own thing, who's happy and who's just doing what they love and who's just able to get out and about and live an independent life, maybe they also love makeup too and things like that, I think it kind of throws them a bit, because they imagine what someone who is blind is going to look like, and then when they see someone who contradicts with this idea, it's quite shocking, and that's the first thing that comes to mind. You don't look blind. But yeah, I get that people probably don't mean it as an insult and they don't mean to be derogatory, and I totally respect that, but all I'm saying is that in the context it's not a compliment. Just bear that in mind. 4.
Do you do anything to combat these misconceptions?
Yes, I do. It's a blog. It's called Fashioneyesta.com. That's the whole reason why I started my blog. Fashioneyesta.com was born from people saying you don't look blind. When I first started my blog, it was because I got all these comments from people who complimented me on the way that I did my makeup and how I dressed and things like that, and they also said that I didn't look blind. And when I first heard these sorts of comments, I'd never really experienced it before, and I was really thrown by it, and I was really confused as to what they meant. And I started to talk to people who also had visual impairments, who like me liked looking nice and taking care of their appearance, and they said, oh yeah, we get that too, I've heard that one before. And lots of people have heard it, and it's a very common thing that a lot of people in the sightless community have heard at one point or another in their life. When I discovered this, I thought to myself, well, this is not right. People surely must know that people who are visually impaired want to look nice as well. It's a human desire. We all want to feel good about ourselves in whatever way that is, and for some of us that might be makeup and skincare and hair care and wearing nice clothes. And why should people with visual impairments be excluded from this sphere of the world? Why should they be excluded from this human enjoyment that I absolutely love? So I thought to myself, hang on, no, I'm not going to let people say this. I'm going to make a blog and I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about fashion and beauty and lifestyle, and I'm going to be, look, hey, I'm here, I'm a visually impaired fashion and beauty blogger, I enjoy these things and other people do as well. And I wanted my presence to very quietly and subtly change misconceptions towards disability without them necessarily realising that I was doing that. So I would make a blog post where I was showing an outfit of the day or a haul when I had my guide dog, and if that could make people reevaluate the way that they perceived visual impairment and disability and made them reassess it in a more positive way, then that was absolutely fine by me, and I'd have been more than happy with that. And as time went on, people started to follow my blog. It really matured from there, and I started making blogs about disability misconceptions and disability topics, and people really enjoyed them. So that's how I began, really. So that's how Fashioneyesta was made. It was created all based on someone saying that I didn't look blind. So thank you for that person who said that, because you changed my life. You gave me a platform to talk about disability and fashion and lifestyle, and I couldn't be happier because it's something I love to do. So keep those misconceptions coming, because it gives me content.
5. What more do you think can be done to tackle the misconceptions surrounding your disability?
I think definitely we need more positive representations of visual impairment in the media. We need to see more visually impaired people on stage, in film, in books, and who take a prominent role, who are positive representations and also authentic and realistic representations of sight loss and disability. Also, the way of the world, social media is progressing in leaps and bounds, and there are so many more disabled bloggers and content creators and vloggers than there ever was when I first started. And it's really encouraging, because the more of us who are on YouTube and who write blogs and who are active in promoting change and having a voice and a profile and making people reevaluate how they perceive disability, it's all going to be for the better. And I think the more of us who are active online in creating content and having a voice and changing perceptions of disability in our own way and talking about our disabilities and the way that it affects us, it can only advance from there. So I think if we are active online and if we are talking about things like disability and diversity, and we all band together and help each other out and support one another, and we are a collective and unified voice who talk about things like disability and who are pushing for change and raising awareness of disability, it can only go up. So the only way is up, baby. The only way is social media. That was my ode to the Disability Misconceptions tag. I had so much fun filming this, and I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. It was really enjoyable to answer these questions and chat some more about disability misconceptions, because you know how much I love me some disability misconceptions talk. Thank you so much, Nicola, for creating this tag. I'm so glad that you did, and it's now a thing on the internet, so thank you for that. I will leave links to Nicola's social media and her YouTube down below if you'd like to go and follow her, and if you do, give her a shout out and say hi and say that you came to her channel from mine. And while I'm at it, I'm also going to tag some people to do this. So I'm going to tag Molly Burke, James Rath, Ricky Pointer, Annie Elaney, Jordan Bone, Jessica Kilgreen Fozzard, and Catch These Words. So have fun with the tag, guys, and if anyone else would like to do this tag, feel free to do it, but of course make sure that you mention who started the tag, which was Nicola Golding. And thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and also if you subscribe, please click the little notification bell to make sure you get new notifications when I make new videos, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!